Good morning, Giovanni. What did we just do now?
We just hiked up Hohe Wand in Niederösterreich, 40 minutes hike up this beautiful wall. Pretty easy hike, I would say. It's, very easy, very quick, leading to a quite stunning view. Very nice for Klettersteig, basically going up a ferrata wall. Very good also for paragliding. Fully recommended. And what is beautiful about that is that it's just 40 minutes by car from Vienna.
Yeah, so we just saw two paragliders taking off not far away from here. Very impressive. And so today actually we want to explore Vienna, what makes Vienna an interesting place for expats or what makes it not an interesting place for expats. I think we both have lived in Vienna for quite some time, and we both obviously we like Vienna since we've stayed here for almost a decade.
Yeah, so it's been 9 years now, indeed. So I think both of us arrived here because of the studies. So we studied here. For you, Artus, was your home school. For me, was my exchange school, exchange university at the VU Business University. And well, what can I say? I fell in love with this city from the very beginning. It's really like a cultural hub. Is beautiful. Walking through the streets is just amazing. Is relaxing. The level of cleanliness, the level of maintenance, the level of, I would say, welfare in this city is, no surprise, is one of the best, if not the best, in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. It's also a pretty good city in general for expat to go to, but it is true. It depends at the end of the day what an expat is looking for.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. Where are you from? Tell us a bit about your background so that we understand your decisions better, right? I mean, some might know with the name Giovanni, but yeah, so where are you from?
So I'm from Italy. I'm from northeast Italy, specifically in the suburbs of Verona. Verona, for those who don't know, is the city of love, Romeo and Juliet, 1 hour from Venice. So quite nice area. And for those that don't know so much about Italy, is also, I would say, a quite wealthy area. So indeed, the question might come spontaneous, like, why did you leave one of the wealthiest part of Italy? So, very quick about myself. I did my entire studies in Italy except the master. So after my bachelor, where I barely managed to leave Italy for a very quick getaway internship abroad.
Where did you do it?
I did it in Switzerland, not far away from Zurich, and only for 3 months.
In what sector or what?
It was like marketing, sports marketing. Okay. So I was working for a company developing high-end apparel for sports.
That was your first experience abroad?
That was my first internship abroad, not the first experience abroad. Like many of us, I of course traveled. I studied English in the UK almost every summer during my high school. I went abroad on some quick getaways with some friends. I went to Greece with my family, Croatia, Spain. So I did the classic traveling, but never more than 1 week, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was always as a tourist. So that was actually my first real experience as a person living abroad, living the life abroad, having to go grocery shopping, going back to his apartment. And that was quite interesting, even though I must say Switzerland is nice, but for a young person who wants to have fun, who wants to meet friends, is a very, I would say, very difficult country to go to, especially when you don't go to a main city. If you go to a small village, of course, the chances to get to know people are even smaller.
Yeah.
And that's what really impacted me a bit. Also, from a mental standpoint, I felt a bit isolated. So I was at some point also looking forward to go back to my country.
Mm-hmm.
But that still gave me the, this adrenaline push, this want to see more abroad, to try more abroad. That's why I decided to go for are highly internationally oriented type of program. So I stick to business, which was my background for my bachelor.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get deeper into business, but with an international touch, and study international management. So I applied to SAMS, and I got an offer from the University College Dublin, so UCD,
Yeah.
the Smurfit, the University of the Smurfs.
Michael Smurfit School.
Michael Smurfit Business School. So I went there in fall 2015. 6 months was great, but the weather. So why did I choose, by the way, Dublin? Is because originally I was looking for the classic business, young business dream. Where is that? Is tech. Many people of our age, or when you are in your 20s, you see all these big companies like Google.
Yeah.
Blue chips company growing like crazy, interesting job, innovation. That was a bit my goal, and that's why I was focusing on Dublin, and that's where I got the offer. But let's maybe cut the story short about Dublin. After I after I experienced the weather,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was the fall semester, so maybe not the best period of the year to be in that city, but it was honestly quite tough, especially for an Italian.
Yeah, I can fully understand that decision. As a Belgian, I think the weather might be even more horrible than Belgium, which is quite an achievement in itself. So I can fully understand the decision. Sort of aligns with my decision also to move to Austria, as the weather had a huge role in it.
Exactly, because I think we can do like a flash forward. All this drizzling and shitty weather led me to kind of abandon the idea of working in tech, working in London or Dublin or in the Nordics countries.
Mm-hmm.
And Austria for me was almost an obvious choice, because I don't know if it's because I'm Italian, but for me the attachment also to my family is a quite important factor. And Austria, from a geographical standpoint, and Vienna, I mean maybe not Vienna because it's very far east, is a very good choice, because it's neighboring with Italy, is not so far from a region, is reachable by train, obviously reachable by flight, and if you have a car, like I do now, is also quite easily reachable by car.
So you had an exchange in Vienna, but what did you know about Vienna before your exchange? Did you know anything about it? Like, I didn't know anything about Vienna before I came here.
I've been only once. Before going back for my studies, I've been to Vienna only once, or I had been only once, with my family. It was like a tour. We did Budapest, Bratislava, and we also stopped by in Vienna. And I fell in love with the city already when I was a kid. And I remember the city. I literally had a crash on this city, and I really wanted to go back.
Yeah.
So maybe it's important to explain that in my case, when I applied for SAMS and I got the offer in Dublin, I had to do a short list of university where I wanted to do my exchange semester to, and I put Vienna as in the top 5. And because of my grades, because of my also past experience, I was allocated Vienna for my exchange. So I was given Vienna for my exchange semester, and that's how I ended up there. So it was also a bit chance, honestly. Yeah. But very happy, like thinking backwards, a posteriori, I'm very happy that I got this city, because the other options would have been Paris, St. Gallen in Switzerland, or Rotterdam, which are maybe very good university, maybe better than VU, but from a quality of life, probably not even comparable, or definitely worse. Yeah. So I arrived in Vienna, and basically I got a confirmation of what I was expecting. My expectations were very high, but they were all somehow matched. I found again the beautiful city I left many years ago, with the extra of having now also a group of friends, being my classmates, to bond with and to go party with. So it was really, really cool. But then the question came spontaneous: do I want to stay here also after my studies? Mm-hmm. And for me, the answer was again
yes. So did you have like ideas of other options, or were you just aiming for Vienna, like only Vienna?
So originally, as I said, I was thinking about English-speaking countries because of my language knowledge. So Dublin or London could have been an option,
Mm-hmm.
or cities where English is enough to find a
Yeah.
job, like Amsterdam, for
Yeah.
instance. Also, I thought about maybe Spanish-speaking countries. So I was thinking about Spain, Madrid, Barcelona, but I didn't speak a word of Spanish, and still I don't. But for an Italian, it could be easy to learn it. But I quickly dropped this idea. For me, Vienna came as a very convenient choice because many of my classmates stayed in Vienna, so I had
Yeah.
already a core group of friends, which I think is very important for an expat.
To just quickly jump in here, that is quite surprising how many people who came to study who are not Austrian actually
Stayed.
stayed. That is surprising and speaks for Vienna.
Yeah, no, I can totally underwrite that. It's just very convenient. It's a very, let's say, very easy city to live in. Back then, now due to inflation, maybe not anymore, but also prices to go and dine out or to go party, they are totally okay. And I think maybe we should open a little parenthesis about the cost of living, specifically with the cost of renting apartments.
Yeah.
Vienna is probably the cheapest capital in Europe in terms of purchasing power for the cost of living and for the cost of rents.
Can you explain why that is? Because
Eh,
Giovanni actually works in real estate, so
Yeah, but that's not the reason why I know that. This is, I would say, common knowledge for everyone who's been living here for several years. Um, Austria per se, even though now the government doesn't really suggest that being the case, with the FPÖ being the lead, but Austria per se is a pretty socialist country, and Vienna, having had the SPÖ, so the Socialist Party, in power for many years, is a very socialist capital in a kind of a socialist country. What does it mean? It means that many of their policies, many of their initiatives are very social oriented, equality, control of pricing. And what does it mean translating into cost of living? Well, now focusing on the rent part, to keep the rent stable in the city, to have high control over the rent, the city of Vienna owns 40% of the real estate in the city, and because of that they are able to control the price. They have a lot of social living houses where the prices are kept, and they are far below the market rents.
yeah.
You have to apply to that, so it's not as easy as it might sound. You do have to apply that. You have to be shortlisted, and you are allocated one of these houses, and the rent there is very low. If you don't want to go to the social
So
housing,
the German word for this is Gemeindebau, right?
Gemeindebau.
Yeah.
Exactly. There are also normal buildings with a social housing within the normal building. So in a given building, sometimes a percentage of the apartments in that building are Gemeindebau, so are for social living purposes,
Yeah.
where the rent is much lower. And then for the remaining 60%, which are privately owned from big institutional companies or simply private owners, we have two types of buildings, and each type of building has its related level of rent. We have the Altbau, literally old buildings.
Yeah.
These are old buildings which were built before 1953. Nobody really knows why this cutoff date, but it is like that. And the Neubau, so literally new buildings, are those that have been built after 1953. For the Altbau, the rent is highly regulated based on the so-called MRG, which is basically the rental property law, if I can translate it like that. So, owner of an Altbau cannot simply decide the rent they want. They need to apply certain rules, and there is so actually so well defined that there are clear calculators online from the city of Vienna where you can actually check if the rent that you're paying in the Altbau is the correct one. And if it's too high, then you can actually claim the money back.
Yeah.
I'm living in the Altbau. That's what I did, and it works.
So am I. Yeah.
And then there is the Neubau. So the Neubau is literally free market. You can charge whatever you want, but because there is such a high volume of cheap apartments, if a Neubau owner wants to lease out their apartment, they of course need to adjust the price closer to these already low rents from the other apartments. But it's normally a bit higher, the rent in a Neubau. So basically, most of the apartments are very cheap from a rental standpoint, and that makes this city already starting from the biggest cost item for a person living in a city. It makes it already very affordable.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say a good example is that Vienna is built up in districts. So you have one-digit districts. You have the first district is the center essentially, and then in a circle around the first district you have one-digit districts, and then beyond that you have two-digit districts.
Exactly. So the districts are built like in a spiral, where the center of the spiral is the first district, and then it develops until district. And now I might say something completely wrong, but I think 23 is the last district.
I don't know, actually.
I'm not even sure about that.
But we both live in one-digit districts.
Exactly. So I think we can maybe give an example.
Yeah.
So I live literally 15 minutes walking distance from the city center in a 60 square meters apartment, 2 bedrooms, is a living room with a kitchen integrated in that, and a bedroom, and then of course the bathroom and the toilet. And we pay only for the rent, my fiance and I, around 900 euros. And the area is extremely good, very residential. With the metro, is 3 stops from the city center, so it's very, very central.
Yeah, and I used to live in the first district, so super central, and alone in 38 square meters. So yeah, clearly really small, but still considered a Neubau, so deregulated market. So 38 square meters. But I believe that it was like 600 euros per month, and
it's crazy.
Literally right in the center. And now for 66 square meters, 950, and I walk to work, 20-minute walk every day to work. So,
and you work in the city center in the first district.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but I think this is a good example, and it's good that you brought up the example of your old Neubau. So 600 on 30 square meters is approximately 20 euro per square meter. And in my case, 900 euro on 60 square meters is around 15. I mean, no, I'm not a calculator, but it's around that number, 14, 15. So you can see there is a difference of around 5-6 euros on average between the Altbau and the Neubau pricing per square meter. But in general, even a Neubau, as you clearly explained, in the city center, heart of the city, is still affordable. But affordable is also a big statement, because something is affordable depending on your purchasing power, which I think now opens up the topic of salaries, which I must say is also one of the reasons why I decided to stay. Austria, despite the vicinity with Italy, is from a salary standpoint, from a career growth standpoint, I would say is definitely and here all the Austrians friends will hate me for this word, is a quite Germanized country, in the sense that, what do I mean? There is meritocracy, there is growth potential if you deliver, if you are performing well, basically you are recognized, and then you can grow, which is something that, and I don't want to generalize about Italy. I need to be very careful with what I'm saying, but the rule is unfortunately not like that in Italy. It's from what I'm hearing, it's difficult to grow. They rather look at your age than your performance.
Seniority.
Exactly, they look at your seniority. Again, it's not everywhere like that, but it's difficult. It's a country where it's a bit difficult to grow when you are a young professional.
Yeah.
But to grow, you need to first start a job, which, if we do a step back, that's another big problem in my country, which is to actually find a job, even a paid job. It's not a legend, the fact that in Italy, many internships are simply unpaid. This
And
is illegal in Austria. In Italy, they are starting having now this minimum salary as well, but it's 500-600 euros. It depends on the region, and it's still way too
brutto
low.
or netto?
Is netto, is net, because I think up to 10,000 euros or 11,000 is tax free, so it would be net. But as a comparison, in Milan now for an apartment similar to the one you described in the city center, not far from Duomo di Milano, I think for 30 square meters studio, you would have to pay probably more than 1,000.
So that's the same size as mine. And you would be living in the city center like I was?
Yeah, and I'm just saying 1,000. I'm not an expert of the Milano pricing, but there have been even recently some scandals where a guy was renting out a 7 square meters. I'm not exaggerating. A 7 square meters room apartment. I don't know how you can call it, cabinet, if you want, for like 600-700 euro.
Yeah.
And this started almost like a riot from all the agents.
Yeah, I think
it's out of control.
I think in Milan, basically the employers can pick and choose whoever they want. So there's a lot more power on the employer side.
Yeah.
And they can therefore offer atrocious salaries in comparison to Austria. Whereas in Austria, there is a lot more competition on the market. And also the crazy thing about Milan is the salaries are much, much lower. I think, for example, a McKinsey junior in Milan
2,000, I think,
earns less than a Big Four junior in Vienna.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the McKinsey Milan employee would be spending far more with, let's say, the same or lower salary.
Milan costs 16% more, or at least that was the standing as of 2022, when I could have been reallocated within my previous job to Milan.
Yeah.
So 16% more expensive, but the salaries are, and now I'm going to shoot a random number, but they are at least 20% lower.
Yeah.
And I am being very conservative.
I think maybe Milan only starts getting interesting as of senior roles, because it's more hierarchical.
Yeah.
It really scales far faster in the higher ranks, but in the junior roles, it's really, really bad.
It's really bad. As you said, it's highly competitive. Many people from the south looking for a job. Unemployment rate in the south of Italy is extremely high. They have to go to northern Italy, and northern Italy is a bit fragmented and not so easy to tackle unless you go to Milan. Milan is really the hub. It's a bit like the Paris, not so centric like Paris is for France, because there are still big companies also in Verona. In Lidl headquarter is in Verona, for instance.
The car manufacturer.
Car manufacturing as well. Yeah, is in that district. Fashion also is in the Verona or Veneto region area. But most of the jobs, needless to say, they are in Milan, especially in the financial segment.
So between your home country, the Anglo countries in Europe, and Austria, which you had just been in for your studies, you then did the high-level calculation, and the calculation was quite easy. And I mean, Vienna is just bang for buck, is just really hard to beat.
Yeah. Vienna, bang for buck, is very hard to beat. In bullet points, you have high welfare, high salaries, cheap cost of living. You have the vicinity, being Italian, you have the vicinity to your home country, especially if you're from northern Italy. Yeah. So you could earn in Austria and spend for vacation in Italy quite easily. And so one might ask, okay, is really everything perfect in this city? And of course not. So the only, I would say, crack in this whole beautiful piece of marble, which is the city of Vienna, because it's quite marble focused, I think it's the integration. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's that extreme like in Switzerland, but let's put it that way. I think we can count our Austrian friends in 9 to 10 years that we've been in this city. We can count our Austrian friends in one hand, maybe 1.5 hands, which I think explains it all, and is not because the Austrians are unfriendly, but I think this might happen honestly everywhere. When you go to a city, unless it's highly expat focused, like maybe Singapore, Dubai, and so on, where there are really a lot of expat, it's not so easy to mingle and go out with locals, because they have anyway their lives, their friends. In our case, it was a bit easier because we studied here.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to meet people, but to add to Giovanni, I agree, and it's sort of reflected in the international ranking. So Vienna does rate number one for, I think, almost 9 years in a row, excluding the COVID years. For 9 years in a row, as most livable city, but it also keeps topping the ranks as least friendly city, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is this. It's actually almost part of their cultural heritage, the unfriendliness. You go to a restaurant and very often they don't treat you well, and yet they expect you to tip them.
Right. Quick to save Giovanni here for a second also. There's a big difference between Viennese people and people from the countryside, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, thanks for saying that. It's true. It's like there is a big difference between, and I love saying this, between Parisians and people from outside Paris. For those who know this difference, I think it could almost be translated into Vienna as well. And it's crazy because, you know, their standard of living is extremely high, and yet they really complain a lot. You know, there is the classic Instagram video of a given old lady complaining that the cash desk, not all cash desks are open, so you can really accelerate the payment at the grocery store.
Yeah. So what happens sometimes, if there's a long line at the supermarket, someone will stand behind you and suddenly shout, "Open up a new
second cash desk."
Yeah, second cashier, please. Yeah, shouting it really loudly until a cashier comes, who's, I don't know, stocking the shelves and opens up. I've never seen that in Belgium, actually.
So they are a bit grumpy and grudgy, these Viennese, but I think in the bottom of their heart they do love the city where they are. One thing we didn't say, which again makes me wonder why they are complaining so much, because again the city is really beautiful, but it's not just the city per se, like the inner city. You just have to Google Vienna, and the first thing you will see are these beautiful palaces like Schönbrunn, Belvedere, so people will understand immediately what we are talking about. And all these buildings, by the way, are very accessible. You know, you can go run in the Schönbrunn Park, so actually you can leave the park where the emperors used to stroll around. You can run inside the Belvedere Park. All these parks are free access, which makes it really, really nice for everybody. But what is even better is that within the city borders, one can easily, during summer, go for a swim in the Danube. One can go and rent an e-boat and, drive this e-boat around the Danube. There is a wakeboarding platform as well, where you can do wakeboarding. Or if you're not a water fan, you can go and do little hikes in the national park of the Wienerwald, of the Vienna forest, also within the city border. There you can walk through the woods, enjoy a glass of wine in the Heurige. This is a restaurant in the middle of vineyards, while having the beautiful view over the city of Vienna. So it's also from...
and you can do that 30 minutes away from the city.
And you can also do paragliding if you can paraglide.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of activities. You're a guy of culture, an Italian guy. What cultural things can you do in Vienna?
Well, there are a lot of museums of history of arts, museum about the war, paintings from different type of, let's say, I don't remember the name, but it's from Impressionism. Chile? Yeah, you have Chile, so more modern paintings. You have modern art, art from the Renaissance. You have, honestly, from a art collection standpoint, is quite impressive what they have. Now you caught me a bit unprepared with the list of names, but is really good in that regard. Then, of course, you can visit the palaces, all built in this Baroque style. So very rich in terms of stuck and decorations and paintings. You can go for hikes. You can go for, well, as we said before, for swimming. During winter, you can drive 1 hour and go skiing, or you can just simply just stroll around the city like a real Viennese and then stop in one of the beautiful cafe houses.
Yeah.
Vienna is known, of course, for the coffee house.
You do that sometimes, don't you?
You can do that. I did that a lot. Funny enough, I was, as a young person, till I was 24, I was having the Jahreskarte, the yearly subscription to 5 museums of Vienna, including the Museum of History of Art, where there is one of the most beautiful cafe in the world.
Yeah.
And I was actually studying there. I was going there every day. This subscription for 1 year costed me 19 euros, and I could go to this museum as much as I wanted. And especially the Kunsthistorische, so the Museum of History of Art, not far from my previous apartment, was very convenient for me to go there and study, with a beautiful view over paintings, over all the decorations inside the museum. So yeah, it's very rich, very beautiful. From a party standpoint, so if you are like really like a young professional, I would say that's where you might be maybe a bit disappointed. I think it is getting better. Then you have to also be careful to choose the right district to live in. So, for instance, the district between the 5th and the 8th are the best district for young professionals or students. Very bohemian, very, they call them very bobo type of districts. That's where I used to live for 5 years. And there you have cocktail bars, cafes, but more hipster cafe, the classic one from the city center. You have the clubs also in this area, techno clubs, underground clubs, or more commercial music clubs. So it's quite well stocked in terms of offer. But if you're looking for entertainment, like young-oriented entertainment a la London or Amsterdam or Madrid and Barcelona, then you will be going to the wrong city, because
yeah, as you said, the most comparable place would be Switzerland, and Switzerland is not known for its crazy wild parties, and I would say
exactly.
it's somewhat similar here.
You can still find the parties,
Yes.
but the offer is more limited, and I think is more for a person who looks the balance between beauty, comfort, nature, and party. If you want to go partying,
Yeah.
it would be like that. It's relaxing. There is a famous German word that they use to describe Vienna style as is the Gemütlichkeit. It's the, I don't know how,
Coziness or
the coziness, is the chillness, the comfort. Yeah, I think this word summarize a bit these 3 words. It's a city that, despite it's a capital, you can see is moving at a slower pace than an average capital city in Europe. So it doesn't give you the anxiety of Milan. Milan is not a capital, but is a financial capital of Italy, and it's very fast. London as well, Amsterdam, probably I haven't lived there, but
yeah.
it's a very moving, quick-paced city. Rome, capital of Italy, also a bit frenetic.
Yeah.
Vienna is
Calm.
a capital, but is
Very calm.
very calm.
Yeah.
Maybe too calm.
Yeah. But I mean, we like it apparently, so
Yeah, we got used to that. I don't think I would be able now, for instance, to go to London. It would
yeah.
be too much. I would get stressed out very quickly, probably, or
And
Milan.
So you've done your single years in Vienna, and now you're in your couple years, and you foresee yourself doing that too. What about family phase and pension phase, like retirement phase? Do you think that Vienna is adequate for those 2 phases, or what do you think about that?
I think actually Vienna is perfect for families. Is, as you probably understood now after we described the nightlife that this city can offer, is more of a family oriented city than a young oriented city or youth oriented city. So for what I can say about myself and now in my life as a future husband, we do see ourselves staying in Vienna and leverage on the high quality services that the city offers to families. Do we see ourselves in the long term here, or do we want to maybe go back to Italy? That's still an open question. But if we go back to Italy, we know what we are going to give up on, and that's all what we've been describing so far. But then you have the closeness to your family as the upside of this trade-off. So it's definitely a city where you want to have a family in. There are many kindergarten, many services. I don't have kids yet, but from the friends we know who have kids,
Yeah.
they are quite happy with that.
A woman can take 2 years off after giving birth,
A woman can take up to 2 years off. You're right.
and she cannot be fired from her job for 7 years.
Yeah, 6 to 7 years,
6 or
something like
7
that.
years, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, maybe from employment benefits, this has nothing to do with your question, but I think is important to say now,
Yeah.
is that I think Austria is the only country in Europe, and somebody maybe will correct me, where when you quit a job, so not when you get fired, when you quit your job, you get unemployment money. And if you quit your job with a mutual agreement, you actually get your unemployment money from day one after you have left the company. If you quit and there is no mutual agreement, then the first month you don't get anything from the government, and from the second month you start getting the unemployment money as if you got fired.
Yeah.
So this is also quite crazy.
And now that you did that little sidetrack towards that financial topic again, I was thinking of two other topics. One which doesn't affect you, and one which does. But I know that we've both thought about it. Bildungskarenz. Can you tell us a bit about that? What is that? I've checked, and I don't think it's available in many other countries, but it's an amazing concept.
Yeah, whether it's available in other countries or not, I honestly don't know. In Italy, I haven't heard of that. So what is that? Bildungskarenz. Basically, you like Bildung, similar to the word building, like you build a craft. Like the country is trying to incentivize people
to educate
themselves. So is a development leave. That's how I would call it, which will cost your company nothing. I think it's easier if I explain it with an example. So I would have to go to my manager, and I would have to ask him, look, I would like to take a Bildungskarenz. Then he would ask me for how long. It goes from a minimum, I think, of 1 month to a maximum of, I think, 6 months. But also, I'm not 100% sure about the numbers. And the money you get during the Bildungskarenz, during this development leave, are the same money you get when you, for instance, it's similar to the unemployment money, or actually is the same amount, and is calculated. Maybe a quick financial explanation is 55% of your average salary in the previous 12 months.
Really?
Either 12 or 24 months. Yeah, that's how they calculate that.
But it's capped at 2,800.
But it's capped. So if you are a very high earner, you will still get 2,000 euros. So it might be.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they adjusted that to 2,100 now with inflation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be low if you are earning. You used to make 5, 6, 7,000 euros net per month.
So this education would be like what? What would you want to educate yourself in?
Well, it can be anything. It can be computer science. So maybe you want to learn how to program with Python or JavaScript or whatever, what have you. Or you want to learn a language. Many people do that to learn a language. Many people, honestly, as a finger pointing, if I'm allowed, they use it or they abuse a bit of that, because they take the annual leave. It doesn't cost the company anything. It's a bit like of a phasing out of someone's career within a company.
Yeah.
You leave, you learn a language, maybe a similar language to what you already speak, like in my case, Spanish. And in these 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of Bildungskarenz, where I'm learning Spanish, because you do
In
have
Mexico.
in Mexico, exactly. I am maybe applying for other companies, and once I'm back
Yeah.
to my company, I just quit that.
That's true. It does get used by people if they really feel like they need to take a break, or as you say, if they want to phase out and start hunting around for another job.
Exactly.
Also, it gets used to actually
Do
educate themselves. I know
develop.
people who have done yoga courses in Bali and then opened up their own yoga studios, for example.
Yeah.
So it does get used to educate yourself more at the job, but also privately for certain stuff. But I've heard the government is going to crack down now and make it more tied to your job, right? So you can't
Okay.
just
That I didn't
choose.
know.
It's planned at least. You can't just choose like, hey, I already speak Spanish, but I'm going to learn Spanish in Mexico for a year.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, but it was already quite strict in the sense you do have to submit ECTS, so you have to submit credits that you make by
Yeah.
officially, because it's not that you go to Mexico, you find the first local guy in the street and you ask him to speak Spanish to you. No, you actually have to do actual courses which
Approved.
are credited with official credits with ECTS.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are, I think, side. Yeah, this was a quick parenthesis. Going back to your original question, so for families, it's great. For pension, I think is also good due to its calmness. But like any other person living, maybe far from the sea or in a place where temperatures can get pretty extreme in both directions, very hot in summer and very cold in winter. I think many Austrians, that would be a lie if I said otherwise, many Austrians are leaving the country to go to the Canary Islands, to go to southern Italy. But if that's not what you want, I think it's still a pretty good city for elderlies. I think there are many initiatives where elderlies are looked after. Young people are going to help them. The city cares a lot about them. They do food delivery. I know something about that because of what my fiancée has been learning about in her interviewing process. Now that she also works for the biggest insurance company, or one of the biggest insurance company in Austria, and there is clearly a lot of care put in place, also financed by this insurance company, because obviously the healthier the elderlies are, the better it is for this insurance company. And that's why the welfare does not just limit itself to the young generation, so to families, but that's really a full spectrum from when you are a toddler to when you are a retired person.
Yeah, and speaking of all of these benefits, so healthcare and Bildungskarenz, I think there's one thing that we haven't mentioned, which is the biggest difference between Switzerland and Austria, is the taxes. So
Yeah.
So that how high are the taxes in Austria? Are they high or are they low?
They're high, but high low is relatively speaking to what I know from other countries. I would say they are high. The question is, what is high? Because for me, a tax is not high if I see that the money I put into taxes is being reinvested properly. And that's what this country, once again, is trying to tell you. They tell you, okay, I tax you a lot, but look at our public transport, look at the quality of our streets, look at the entire health system. So you do pay for something.
Yeah.
You mentioned Switzerland. I think is a tough comparison and very difficult also with the knowledge I have to compare these two countries, because it's true that in Switzerland taxes are lower. By the way, it depends on which canton you live in. I used to live in the lowest tax canton of Switzerland when I was doing my internship there, which is Canton Schwyz, not far from Zurich. But you can pay as little taxes as you want, but in Switzerland you still have a mandatory insurance that you must have, social security. So all these things that you have to pay on the side, which in Austria, like most of the European countries, is taken care automatically in your payslip. So they already deduct all these things. In Switzerland, you actually have to take care of that yourself. And I'm pretty sure that's much more expensive than in Austria. But also salaries are more higher. So it's difficult to compare. But yeah, taxes are high. So if you're looking for a low tax country, maybe
And
do your math before coming here.
and so for anyone thinking of coming here, how important is German actually? Yeah. How important was it for you? How important was it for people that you know? And let's say I'm an Italian looking at this video and I think, hey, I want to also move to Vienna and get a job.
Yeah, I think this is actually funny enough. We are talking about that only now, but it's one of the most important questions probably because it's becoming more international. I hear more and more English on the streets,
Definitely.
Which is the good thing from an integration standpoint, from finding friends. This is important. But the question here is about finding a job, so being able to actually live in the city. And in that regards, I think German is quite important. More and more positions where German is not required are opening up. My fiance did manage to interview in many companies where German was not mandatory, but this goes without saying. If you speak German and you speak it fluently, you open 4, 5, 6 times more doors than in case you don't. And if you find a company where German is not required, maybe speaking German allows you to have a faster career because still the business you might have to do will involve some German speaking and that will allow you to have a faster career. So German is definitely advisable as a language, but it's not a must because I do speak German, but when I started in my previous job, not speaking German was okay, even though with the promise that I would have learned that, which I did, but still not fluent or obviously not close to any mother tongue level around me.
Yeah.
And still I was able to stay here, but it's not easy. Also, in my sabbatical when I changed jobs, it was tough. I think it's also because of the industry I'm working in, which is, as you said, is real estate. You need to speak German. You meet landlords, you meet retailers, you meet developers and architects, and some of them, unfortunately but understandably, only speak their native language, and that's it. And if you want to do business, you need to be able to speak the language your counterpart can speak. So German is advisable, but it's not a must.
Yeah. And I would say that the competition for the non-German speaking jobs
Is extreme.
is much higher because all the German speakers can apply because all of them speak English mostly.
Yeah.
But also all the, let's say, immigrants like us or expats, whatever you want to call it, are also applying to those jobs if they don't speak German. Speaking of, Vienna is the easternmost, let's call it, rich city almost in Europe. So it attracts Eastern Europeans.
A lot of them.
So many, yeah.
Yeah, that's good that you're mentioning that. So there are really a lot of Hungarians, many people from Slovakia, Czechia. Let's not forget that Vienna is only 40 minutes drive from the capital of Slovakia. So there are also many commuters, people living in Bratislava and then working in Vienna. So competition is definitely very, very, very high. And this is also quite clear, at parity of skills, if the other candidate in the job interview process speaks German better than you, there are high chances that they will go for this candidate. So it does give you extra credit, an extra point during the interview process when you speak the language, the local language.
Yeah. So any last thoughts or any recommendations that you want to share?
Yeah, it's. I think we already said it many times.
Yeah.
If you are really looking for comfort, overall good salaries, affordability to live even with average salaries, convenience, accessibility to nature, but also to cultural, beautiful offers, I think really Vienna could be the right place for you. If you are a person who needs to be active non-stop 24/7, you are looking for partying, you're looking for excitement, fast-paced city, then you might be a bit disappointed, even depressed, I dare saying. But yeah, it's important that you understand what you are really looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, ciao.
Mahlzeit.
Mahlzeit.